Welcome to another episode of Crazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair. Woo! Thanks so much for joining me this week with Ride. So, there's always something for everyone on Crazy Train. And as you know, I have a pretty good, variety of guests. And I feel that everyone should be able to have a voice on here because I don't cancel people. I'm not that sensitive. I encourage people to speak their minds, especially in today's society. And I also believe in sometimes burying the hatchet for the sake of entertainment. I kind of feel bad sometimes when I beat the living crap out of Misha Montana with my kendo stick in XPW wrestling. So I decided, hey, let's maybe we should just have a chit chat and see if there are things that we agree on, things we like, and so forth. So just for the sake of my listeners, I decided to bring on Miss Misha Montana as my guest today on Crazy Train Podcast. So without further ado, Miss Misha Montana. About and what we think. But yeah. This is
Right.
so funny having you on the podcast right after we were like in a ring rolling around in glass and beating each
I I know it's not funny. I'm sure people are gonna be like, "Oh, what is happening here?"
other.
Like, I agreed to let our bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
Come
For
on,
now.
you got me so good. I know. We'll take it to the ring. We'll take it to the ring.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah, that
yeah.
was crazy.
I was
That was
scared
so crazy.
because you're like taking photos with welts. I'm almost thinking that like you're somehow into this and I should be getting paid from you directly to do that.
Honestly, I was thinking the same thing because it was kind of a trick. Like, I actually like that shit. So the joke's on you.
Yeah, I didn't get paid a penny
I
for
love it.
support. I know this is crazy. But what even got you into wrestling? Because the first time I see you at XPW, like I knew you were going to be there. Then I see you at XPW wrestling, and then I see you posting. Never did I think in my younger years, and it was a photo with me and Veronica Kane. So, how did this whole wrestling come about in your life? Did it find you? Did you seek it?
To be completely honest, I never like even was into wrestling until about 2 years ago. Ivan's the one who got me into it because he's been one so involved with XPW, but he was a WWE fan, he's an AEW fan. He's been involved with loving wrestling his whole life. And so, being around him so much, it kind of started to transfer over to me. Like, when your boyfriend's watching football and you're pretending not to watch the game, and then you kind of start getting emotionally attached. So I started to love it myself. Like, and the more I watched it, the more I loved it. Like, I started to bug him, like, can we watch Dark Side of the Ring? Who's Wardlow going to go against tonight in AEW? Like, I've been so involved in wrestling over the last year, particularly just as a fan. And I never thought in a million years, like the way that it all happened and transpired was when Rob brought back XBW, he asked Ivan to be a part of the photography in it. And, obviously with us being porn related and the crossover from Extreme in your time, that was part of the whole thing. So I was like, this is a great opportunity for me to be involved with something that I truly love and to have that crossover there. I never imagined in a million years that it would be what it is. Like, I love it. I mean, my passion is definitely wrestling over even porn now. I watched, you and Veronica are just absolutely legendary icons to me in both respects. So I'm so grateful to be like learning from you guys, even though you beat me up all the time. And but I love it. Like, I love the wrestling stuff so much. I'm so excited to see where it goes. And we've got some big plans coming. So
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. It's weird because I didn't know if I'd ever talk to Rob again. And you did see Dark Side of the Ring. Now, was
I
that
did
before or after you met Rob?
before,
Okay, all right.
actually.
Yeah.
I knew all about Rob before. And watching Dark Side of the Ring was really interesting because we're watching it with Ivan, who was a part of that entire story. Like, would have been a good person to interview for that too. But watching Dark Side was they're always slanted in a certain way. They're trying to paint this picture of somebody that, you know, isn't necessarily a good representation of who they are. And I've always wanted to meet Rob. And this, I had no idea he was going to bring XPW back at the time that I saw Dark Side. So when he was going to bring it back, I was like, I absolutely would love to fucking be a part of that. 100%. Like, I would love to be involved in this in whatever way possible.
It's kind of the same thing I said at first too. Then like here I am years later, just getting back into this whole thing. And it's fun because like I like working with younger talent such as yourself because it's a tough thing. Like, were you expecting to be mistreated or maybe like what were your expectations when you went back to XPW and then you found out, oh, okay, well, I'll be working with Jasmine and Veronica, or I'll be doing this and doing that. Like, did it meet your expectations?
Oh, 100%. It actually exceeded my expectations because when I first started doing it, I didn't really realize, like, I thought it was cool enough to just be involved as even like to be featured in a promo and have nothing to do with the stories, or, you know, to be Schlack's valet was so cool. And then, I mean, I wanted to have always wanted to be involved in it more physically and, you know, to be involved in the actual matches and the whole storylines and everything else. Like, I want to be as involved as possible. And it's like when working with you guys, I was like, this is the coolest fucking opportunity I've ever had in my whole life, you know, for us to do this. It's like, it's so cool. And I know you know, you wear many hats and all the businesses and projects that you have. Like, I know it means the world to you too. Like, there's just something about it. It's just so magnetic and fulfilling. And you get a total rush from it in a way that you don't get from other things.
Yeah. Well, maybe a toxic relationship or something, or like
Sure.
some kind
Yeah.
of really, because
That's
toxic
fair.
relationships are fun.
It
Let's
is a
get real
toxic.
about that. Now, did you find it? Were you obviously you started off
Oh,
with
I
the
love
what?
toxic.
Toxic relationships? Huh?
I was like, oh, I love toxic relationships. We
I
love
know.
those.
I don't think people understand it. It just seems like people don't get like when you have a toxic relationship, it's kind of fun because it keeps the shit going and going. Maybe that's why I like unstable men for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. I'm all about a toxic relationship any day of the week. Those are the best.
Yeah, you hear that, guys, girls?
The more toxic, the better.
I know that's yeah, it blows up in your face and then it ends up like
Yes.
with a restraining order or some shit.
Oh yeah, yep. Those are the ones, the favorites.
Well, you exist in the subculture of wrestling. Porn is also a subculture. How did you get involved in porn? And did you face a lot of challenges being tatted up at that time?
You know, I've been doing sex work for about 10 years. I finally started to jump into industry porn and got the courage enough to do it about 2 years ago, you know, dead smack in the middle of the pandemic. Great timing. But when I got in, the only company that would hire me, because I am coming from the corporate world in the old fashioned way, like I send really professional emails to companies, you know, which no one does. And I was never able to get an agent. I went through all the agencies. They politely declined taking me on. And I was frustrated. I didn't even know, like, I didn't realize, like, which I think people don't realize how difficult it is to actually get into the industry side of porn. And I was lucky enough that Ultra responded to my email and how I got brought on just into porn in general, into mainstream industry porn. Um I was brought on through Ultra Erotic, and you know, kind of the rest is history with that. I became the chief brand officer and production manager and only female director for them, as well as the unofficial contract star for them, and all these wonderful things. And it really elevated my career just being with them. And they're the only company that highlights tattooed models. I've had people, agents. I got an agent after the fact. I was dropped by that agency because of the tattoos. I've had directors and producers say like, I'm trying to get you into some of these scenes and they just won't go for it. Which is crazy. People have this misconception that, tattoos are so wildly popular and people, these beautiful tattoo models are, have huge followings and very successful, but it's like crossing in, it's still the same that it was 20 years ago for the most part. Like it is extremely difficult to be tattooed in this industry, which people don't believe at all, but it is like completely, which is unfortunate, super unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, when I was leaving the business, there were only two girls that were tatted up, Tara Patrick and Janine
Mm-hmm.
Lynn Muller. And now it's like everyone. I just had Ebony Mystique on the show. She's African
I love
American
her.
and she's gorgeous and she's tatted up. But you girls seem to, do okay for yourselves. And
Yeah.
yeah, you really do. And did you watch porn growing up?
I never did actually. I'm not a big consumer myself. I never really watched it. I watched obviously like everyone else, I watched Pirates and like I knew who people were. Like I knew who you were, I knew who Veronica was, I knew like Jenna Jameson and Stormy and a lot of the bigger name girls. I always knew them for being like more of the public figures than necessarily watching their actual physical scenes. I never was like aroused by porn. Like I'm a very like mental visual person. So like even when I'm masturbating or like even to get me like to come like when I'm having sex like with someone, I'm visually in my mind. Like I don't need actual visuals to make to myself get there. So I've never really consumed it. Once in a while, I'd watch it. A lot of the stuff that I'm into is like the bondage and BDSM stuff. That's if I'm watching something, that's what I like to watch. But for the most part, I don't. I actually watch more porn now, and it's really just analytically, going through my scenes and being like, I don't really like that part right there. Like it's not arousing professional purposes these days.
Don't you think it's weird seeing yourself when you're even going through it for analytical purposes?
Sometimes it used to be weird where it was like cringe. I can't like watch myself, but I'm so detached from the emotional investment in it that it's like I really just look at it for what it is, and I critique myself probably more than anything too. Where it's like, God, I wish you wouldn't have done that, like, or your face looks like shit there. What are you doing? Or there's times where I'm like, well, this is fire. Like, I love this. You look great. You killed that shit. So, I enjoy like going through them and watching it, but it doesn't like rouse me in a sense. Like, it's more just strictly business. It's for us so much into this emotional connection that doesn't necessarily exist. I mean, rarely, if ever. And you have to understand that it's a performance. And, you and I understand that, but a lot of people on the outside just get so caught up with, they blur the line between reality and fantasy so much that they forget that like we are performing, we are actors, So it is so heavily business minded for me, but it always has been. And I enjoy the performance of it. I love hearing people's feedback. And when they enjoy something, it's great. Then we just make it better the next time. But I love it. I love porn so much. Like, I really do love what we do. I'm very, very happy with it. But I'm happy with it because I can control my content now. Most of the projects I either write or have like a direct hand in myself, where a lot of people don't have that. So, not getting booked a lot for big, huge companies is actually a blessing for me because then I get to make the stuff that I want to make and that I'm comfortable doing and good at doing. Like there's so much stuff in the industry now that I hear from people and that I've seen where they're in uncomfortable situations and they don't have control of the narrative as much as they would like, and they feel pressured to do things they don't like. They still do it. It's still ultimately their choice. But I like being in the little alt-erotic bubble. Like being in alt porn is definitely a huge blessing for me. I love it.
Yeah, I could totally tell by the way you talk about it. I mean, it's a shame because back then we didn't know, well, obviously we didn't have the internet, we didn't have OnlyFans, we didn't have all these great ways to capitalize on it, and some goomba sitting in frickin' Rhode Island has the rights to my
Right.
movies. Huh? You're frozen, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
go.
sorry, did it freeze?
It's okay.
No, it's crazy the way we've actually, the progress with having creators be in control of their content has just been substantial. Um, and it gives us individual ability to, make money outside of companies where you're not reliant on those companies the way it used to be. Obviously, working with them still, it enhances your brand and your image and the widespread promotion that they can give you. But ultimately, like having your own content really is king these days in a much different way than it was years ago. But I actually I prefer working with companies because in my mind, like being an iconic porn star, you're on a box cover. You're not in your living room like doing content in sweats. Like, and that's all great and fine, but like I always wanted to be that figure that that you are, like where you're the porn star, you're the glamorous box cover girl. Like that's what I wanted to be. So I have a hard time separating from like the industry and like the content stuff, like because I would always choose to prefer to be in the industry than to make content too, if that makes sense.
It seems like there could be a happy medium. Oh, by the way, when I was looking through your photos, I think there was some really hot guy in the photo. I forgot who it was,
Which
but
one?
I don't know. He was cute. He was too old though. He was like 28 or 20, whatever he was. But
I know he's too old for you.
some men people took offense to that, like grown men took offense to it. I think it's funny. I mean, there's a
I
50,
think it's great.
exactly. They're 50. I have a friend who's like 50 that told some 20-year-old girl that she was too old. And he's
Yeah,
not even
it's
good
okay when
looking.
they do it.
Yeah, exactly. Screw them. Yeah, guys, you
Yeah.
hear that?
Yeah, you're too old. Oh wait, you're 27, baby. You're getting up there. Like I can't do it. Yeah, you want a young, dumb, and full of cum. That's like the perfect fucking little boy toy. That's
Yeah,
the perfect
right.
age in their 20s. It's so big. I love you so much for
Or a death
that.
match wrestler, even if he's married. But anywho, so I didn't say that.
Side note,
Yeah.
side note.
Well, yeah, no, side note. Okay, side note, truth. Yeah, truth
It's
is
true.
yes.
We don't know about that. No, we
Yeah.
don't know about
Yeah, we
that.
have no idea about this show. We would never do that, right?
Never,
But
never.
so you seem to be doing really good with your own content and just doing your whole thing with your appearances. Do you feature dance as well, or did you not get
I I have been
that?
actually.
Okay.
I did. I love featuring. I was so nervous about it. So what's funny is like, I public speak a lot and I do these panels and interviews and all these different things. But I was so nervous about feature dancing. That was the thing where I was like, is this seriously? This is the thing that you're gonna freak out about? And here's why. Because I've never was a dancer. Like I never was, and I'm not good at it. And so I don't do pole tricks like I'm up that fucking pole. There's no way. Like, and I was so nervous that I was gonna eat shit, or then like I had to be up there for 15 minutes, and I'm like, what am I gonna do for 15 minutes up here? Like, I can't do anything cool. So I was so nervous about it, but it ended up being like great, and I love doing them now. Like that, once you get the first one out of the way, like everything's like, for the most part, smooth sailing from there. I love featuring. Featuring is one of my favorite things to do now too. Like absolutely love it. I had such a blast doing it. So I enjoy that. And I enjoyed, doing appearances at the conventions and meeting the fans and I like interacting with people. Like that's the biggest part that I get the most joy out of is to be able to like meet people. And I still am at that point where I know at some point it might wear off, but it's like I love meeting people and having them be excited to meet you. Like that's such a cool thing that I think we kind of take for granted sometimes when you get like, conditioned to it happening so much. Like, but I love it. I'll never ever not like inter engaging with fans for sure. Like even with XPW, like I love the meet and greets. I love that stuff. Like it's fulfilling, and everything that we do is validated at the end of the day.
How long have you been involved in adult films?
Really only about like in industry side about 2 years, but on and off I did like print for 10 years and then switched over to video probably about like 3 years ago. So not a terribly long time, but what's crazy is my career in the first technical year in the industry went so huge that people and I'm old, so there's that. So people like assume that I've been in it for like way longer than I've been in, and I really haven't. I'm still kind of like I'm still considered like new performer of the year. Like I wasn't even eligible for it last year. So, and that was the biggest year that I had was my first year. And this year was great following that. So, my career was, the track was sped up substantially. Like I think I accomplished about 10 years worth of work in 1 year with brand building. But that's what, like, I think it's so important, you know, you either kind of get it or you don't in this business, where I'm glad I waited till I was older to get into it and had, a career in politics and had all these life experiences to get into it. Because if I was 18, I would not have been as successful. Like my hat's off to these girls that get in at that age and can handle themselves with grace and financially, take care of themselves and plan for the long term. Like it's a difficult business to be in. I mean, mentally, financially, emotionally, there's a lot involved in it. So I always say to people, like, really thinking about your brand is the most important thing that you can do. You're a living, breathing brand. You have to pour everything into that. So everything that I can do to build my brand, I do. And I've been very successful in doing so. So I'm grateful for that too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I get the whole thing, just doing a lot like within a year. I existed in that whole thing for like maybe 2.5, 3 years, then bam, just got out like
Right.
cold turkey. It was easy because I liked wrestling more, but I
Yeah.
watching wrestling. Rob was the reason, like he gave me that leeway out. Like we didn't know what we were doing, but he was basically my ticket out in a way. Not that I was looking for
Right.
a ticket out. I just knew I'd get out somehow or another. Um, I just didn't know exactly how. Now, did you just win an award at the Urban X Award show? Because I saw all these photos on your page and like all the alternative models pages. I'm like, what is this? Did you win something? Or I know you were nominated. You had to be.
I was nominated. I was honored to be nominated. I was nominated for hottest ink star. That brought my total nominations this year to 17, um, and which is crazy. Like I still can't believe that. And I didn't win, but it was a great time. It was a wonderful, beautiful night. And then I just was nominated again for Best Ink Star at Why Not? And I'm also speaking on a panel for mental health and social media for them as well that week. So it's just like, I feel bad asking the fans, like it's been like a year straight of be like, hey, vote for me. Hey, vote for me. And then all of a sudden, like this new award comes up and they're probably just like, Jesus Christ. But I'm like, it's great. I mean, you can't complain about that. Like I'm so honored to be nominated. And the Why Not one, there's only 5 people in the category and there were 2,000 submissions for pre-noms and they only picked 120. So I'm totally just beyond grateful. I'm speechless in a sense. Like it means a lot to me to be nominated for these things. It really does. So
Yeah.
I'm happy.
I don't know. Like I still have this weird conspiracy theory that maybe somehow, just somehow, I don't know. I believe the fans vote, but I don't know. I just think there's some other thing to it. I,
Oh,
I have no
I
idea.
agree
That's
with
me.
that.
That's just me doing my conspiracy crap. I won't get into
I
it.
think so too. No, I, yeah, I'm there with you. I agree. But you know what? Whatever it is, like nominations, and Ivan taught me this too, is like he had over 100 nominations before he ever won his first award. And like, nominations mean more than the award itself sometimes, because you don't really necessarily know how people are legitimately securing those wins, right? But nominations, they are recognizing, you know, who is the elite in their class, like thousands of performers, to be in a top 5 or a top 10 category in the entire industry. Like, shit, that means the world, whether you win the physical award or not. Like, obviously a win is fantastic, but the nomination is equally as wonderful because they're recognizing your talent and the work that you put into it. So I am just beyond thrilled to be nominated as many times as I have been. So, and we just finished all of our pre-noms for AVN and Expos this year, and we've got some crazy, crazy projects. I directed my second movie in my series. I did a whole, almost like another showcase called Blackout DVD, and we did this weird alien series and Ink Motel, and so it's great. Like, we'll see what happens with nominations for that, but regardless of that, like, being passionate about what you do and putting out things that people enjoy is ultimately like the whole point. So it's nice to get nominated and win awards for sure, but it's nice to put out stuff that people like too.
Yeah, I think that's the most important part. And awards and all those things, those are always political. We know that. Now,
Always.
what was this? I want to hear more about your public speaking because I think you're a very well articulated person. That's why I know you're educated somehow. And I also watched two Russians in America. I like Russian accent, Russian.
The two Russians. Yeah, well, that's very
Russian.
good. Very sexy. Very
Give me
sexy.
green card. I give you, give
I give you pussy for
vodka,
green cards.
vodka. I give you pussy for green. Yeah. I got to get with it. I could do it though. Now, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about your public speaking events with mental health. And I do believe bullying on the internet needs to be addressed. I mean, it's I don't really
Oh,
have
it's out of control.
yeah, it doesn't bother me. I'm like, whatever. Like I was around chat rooms and stuff, but something like August Ames never should have happened. That was really sad.
No,
And that bitch who said all that stuff to her had the gall to show up at Sapphire the week after with blood on her hands, literally. I
yeah,
don't think that was right. But tell us
I
about your
don't either.
speaking engagements. Yeah, she's trash. What was her? Yeah,
Well, and that's
yeah.
unfortunately, I have stepped into this role of trying to humanize our industry because everything that you see and people, the general population has access to, it's all misinformation. It's outdated for the most part. A lot of these statistics people throw around, and I mean, and some of it's just flat out not true. And there's so much negative, regurgitated information and the stigma that's permanently attached to our industry, where you never get to actually see the positive side or the human side. Or we have families and we are human beings at the end of the day. And so I took on this mission to try to speak publicly, to try to at least provide education at the very least, and to have a conversation with people that oppose what we do and who we are. And it's working. For the most part, I've had some pretty big engagements with a lot of opponents of the industry, and I enjoy it. Like, and people are always like, well, you're never going to change someone's mind. Like, that might be true, but at least I'm providing another narrative that often doesn't get talked about because, and I understand people's frustration where they don't even want to attack it because it seems like such a monumental thing to try to do, and it's defeating. And believe me, it's difficult. I mean, as you know, it's incredibly difficult to do. But if we have the conversation, at least we're having it, and it's pumping something as an alternative perspective into the universe so people can make up their own minds. The not providing education is what's completely detrimental, because you have kids and young adults that are rooted in shame for how they have biological feelings about it, to not talk about it, to it's a shameful experience, and that's where you start getting all these problems and all this these outbursts and violent outbursts potentially. Like if we can educate everyone and at least give them an option, then they can make up their own minds and they can. And again, it's a personal issue. I think it should be left to people's households, but it's not up to us to police there. So I enjoy out of control. I mean, everything you see on social media, we've unfortunately grown accustomed to have this evil animal integrated permanently into our lives. And, you know, the kids are growing up with the internet as their role model, as their parent, as their figure in their life that they look to model after, and it's so unhealthy and downright dangerous because we're out of touch with each other as human beings. You know, you're raising little sociopaths in a sense because you stick them in front of an iPad, or you know, they're learning from you know these video games and the violence that they're seeing, and plus they're learning that your worth is tied to a bullshit perception of someone on the internet. You know, they're so obsessed with the likes and the following and what can I do to, and it's all bullshit, but no one's telling them that, you know, like they're so obsessed with it, you know, and unfortunately for our businesses, you know, it's a necessary animal. And even socially, like you, to be a part of a social ecosystem now, you have to be connected through all these apps. But the dangerous too, especially for people like us, is when you get these anonymous predators that can hide behind a keyboard and they threaten you, they threaten your life. They go and they try to ruin, you know, take your pages down and alter your business and your cash flow. And it's a very nasty, negative place. And for children, especially that feel so compelled to be a part of these things out of, you know, necessity for their social well-being, it's actually, you know, counterproductive because, you know, you, if you're not getting 100 likes on a photo and your friends are, then you're psychologically damaging yourself and your worth is tied to these social media sites. So, you know, I think dealing with the consequences of what people say to you on the internet. I mean, I know that you I can only imagine the stuff people say have said to you. People say horrible things to me all day, every day, but it's how you deal with it. So my goal in speaking on it is to try to provide people with some of the tools that have helped me. I don't know if it's applicable completely all the way around, but you know, I've learned over the years, one, I never really gave a fuck what people thought, so that helped. But, you know, it's hard when, you know, you people talk about your appearance or like in my case my voice or whatever it is, the shallow, you know, low ball uneducated kind of attacks that people choose to do. But you know, for someone that's not used to being totally shredded by the public 24/7 like we are, I can see where people would be tempted to kill themselves or to hurt others, an outlash, you know, or Jesus Christ, like brain fart, you know, lash out because of those things. So I think it's important that we start really addressing mental health tied with social media because as fake as social media is, the consequences are very real. And these kids are going to grow up in a world where they're totally disconnected from humans and exposed to nothing but violence and negativity and hatred on the internet all the time.
Yeah,
So I think it's important.
it's serious. And like if you try that back then, you get the shit kicked out of you. And I just personally ignore it.
Yeah.
I was attacked by some Slobovian writer from Variety magazine. I was making a friend with one of my comedian friends. We were making a joke. Sorry, we were making a joke on Twitter. And you know, a lot of people I think these days are they get anxiety when they have to be in person to meet someone and date someone. That's what I'd much rather do. I don't use apps. I've been thrown off of almost every dating app because I've cursed people off because I can't sit
Same.
there and do this. I got thrown off. I just made one joke that I was thrown off of JDate because they found out I wasn't. I said, "Is that discriminating a little bit?" Because my first boyfriend was Jewish, by the way, but not Orthodox, and it wasn't making fun or fetishizing anyone. All of a sudden, this writer from like Variety or something she like attacks me. I'm like, man, I feel bad for your husband. I think she looked kind of like her dog, to be quite frank with you. But it was so
As they usually do.
she fucks her dog. But yeah, so
As they do. As they do.
yeah, we got
Weird.
to see the video, of course. But yeah, so that's the, so just it was so funny, but I just didn't care. I was amused by it. But people feel like they could say what they really want to on the internet and have
Mm-hmm.
that free speech that we can't in everyday life. And this is what I tell people all the time is you have to really get information before you open your mouth to speak about something. I have friends that want to talk about politics with me. I'm like, don't say anything to me
Yeah.
until you read everything out there. And I
Yeah.
mean everything. I had a lot of misconceptions about climate change, and I got this 18-page document, like with real stuff from like a real scientist, and it made sense. It's probably why my power was out earlier. But it's just I feel people are underinformed about a lot of things in life, especially with
Agree.
the perils of social media. I didn't know August Ames personally, but hey, what happened to my body, my choice. That's just my thing. And it should be up to every girl who they
Yeah,
want to work
that's
with.
not applicable anymore.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Not to us at
Well,
least.
and that's and unfortunately, like that all contributes to there's a lot of contributing factors there. One is the industry that we're in. People think that we are not entitled to have control over our bodies because we're, meat puppets for their entertainment, essentially. We're not allowed to have opinions. We're not allowed to choose who we work with. We're literally just, little skin puppets, like for them to dictate what we do with our own bodies. And that is transparent in the industry. And God forbid, in this day and age, particularly, without going into it too extensively, it's like the climate that we're in these current conditions is breeding that kind of attitude and philosophy that if you don't want to work with someone, you don't want to have the power of your own sexual freedom and the choice to do what you want with your body, then you're either racist or transphobic or whatever it may be that, your personal preferences no longer are applicable. Because if you do so without being any of those things, whatever happened to being able to have a preference with, who you want. And that's an intimate thing. Like that'd be like us telling you like, well, then why don't you go fuck that guy down the street? Oh, you don't want to? Like, it's, you don't have control any longer over like what you can do with your own body to some extent. I mean, you do ultimately have the choice, right? But the pressure is there um, to work with people you might not want to work with, and I think that that's dangerous. I think that a lot of these things might be good intentioned. Inclusivity is a wonderful, wonderful thing until it's not. And when it's forced so heavily to some extent, like you're actually creating more damage than good. And you're going to create resentment. And those things are way more damaging than you're creating a problem that didn't necessarily exist in the first place. I think that and again, that comes from lack of education and people truly like understanding how people operate and how they feel about like if you're just totally making problems out of nothing. So it's an interesting time to be working in this industry. I mean, it's an interesting time to be alive, period. So, but people are just, the social media has contributed to that in a negative way because now everybody thinks that they've got the right to share their opinions, which I'm all for to some extent, but it's like there are people that don't need to say their opinions. Like let's be real. Not every person should have access to a soapbox. Karen from South Dakota with 3 followers, like no one gives a fuck what you think about anything, but it's damaging and it's giving people egos. It's giving them an outlet to voice their misinformation and their hatred and all these other things that don't contribute positively to the world whatsoever. Like there's so many things that we try to change for the good in this world, but the entire population has contributed negatively to that, unfortunately. And it's all because of technology. We just become so technologically bound that we can't even separate from it at some point.
It's really sad. I mean, I was out yesterday and I saw a guy and a girl on a date, and they're just there at the table doing that the whole time, taking photos and doing this. It's like, if that's what
And not
you're gonna do,
talking. Yeah.
right, then stay the fuck at home, okay? Like, you're lucky you're even on a date. Like, I mean, he's in literally
A
his
real date.
pajamas
Yeah.
almost. It's like, who dresses like this? And you say something and you're a bad
Oh,
person.
yeah.
Which brings me to the next point with trauma that comes out of this. So when you try to force people to work with someone that they would not want to, that traumatizes their experience in the adult film business. I mean, I didn't exactly get to choose guys that show up in a fucking gangbang, but hey, a circus is a circus. You gotta, I mean, it's a gangbang for the people, but it's
Sacrifices
it's
we
for the
make.
people. Yeah. But I just think that people are doing more harm than they are making this a positive experience. When you have to force, and this goes out for a lot of you internet bullies, especially you stupid performers out there that are pushing people to sound like you're cool or so PC and so edgy. You're not. What you are is a fucktard piece of shit pushing your beliefs on someone else. Let them open their vagina to whoever the fuck they want to. Let them slide their cock into whoever the hell they want to. Like, that is the truth. And when you don't do that, it's as good as a boyfriend pushing a girl into doing porn. And that is what people fail to realize. I'm sorry, I went on one of my crazy
No, that's
tangents again.
no, that's wonderful. That's beautifully spoken. I agree with that because the thing is, and here's the thing, one of the biggest arguments that people have against our industry is that they feel like women are um not empowered, they're in their victims, which I completely situations like that where you're shaming people in their, into working with people that they don't necessarily feel comfortable working with, then you're breeding that environment. You're giving the opponents exactly what they need to say, well, look at this situation. She didn't want to do that, and now she was forced into it. So now you are creating a problem that didn't exist, and now it's fulfilling the prophecy for the people that oppose what we do. If you're creating traumatic experiences, and it's so hypocritical in a sense too, because if you should have ultimate control, and my personal belief is, of your own body in every way possible, and that goes across every fucking little check mark it could cover in every way possible. But how can if you want to have access to abortion rights, then why am I being told who I have to fuck? And I'm not saying that this has necessarily happened to me. I am very in control of who I work with and what I do, and I'm very happy, and I am lucky enough to not have had traumatic experiences like that. But I've seen it, I've witnessed it, I've heard about it. I know what's going on to some extent, but it's not, indicative of the entire industry, and I would never put the industry under a bad light. But I think that it's something to be cautious of happening too, because even if it's happening here and there, which things happen, from time to time, but it ultimately is going to backfire, for one. And two, it's going to create a bigger issue for us than we already have. We already have so many problems, and we're fighting an uphill battle against everyone that hates us. And you're giving them on a silver platter. So the scrutiny that we're under all the time, I wish people would contribute in a positive way and not in a negative way. And that just seems, every time we do something positive, I open the fucking, Daily Mail, and it's like, oh God, what did somebody do now? Because you realize, being in this business, you are an individual brand, but your we do matters, and it's under scrutiny. So like when you're acting and behaving a certain way, you're a public figure. Act like one. You don't have to be Mother Teresa, but at least contribute positively for your peers, for yourself, and to this world as a whole. If you are reckless and selfish and self-fulfilling gratification, get out of it, it's it's dangerous to the community within your community.
Yeah, you're bringing everyone down. And in a way, like when I witnessed that whole August Ames thing, I was going to go down to Sapphires because I was in New York and say something, because you're canceling someone with this bullshit cancel culture. You're canceling them because they didn't want to have sex with someone else that they didn't want. They just didn't feel it, felt uncomfortable. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not how you empower yourself. You're not empowering
No,
another woman. You're
no,
empowering her to probably do something and hurt herself, but that's it. And
yeah.
I mean, I get traumatized on a daily basis when I see guys my age take their fucking clothes off. It's like, oh God, no, I'm not sleeping with them. God, whew, whew. Yeah.
I just love
It's
you
like
so
you
much.
guys
It's
out there, you
sad.
guys want to you want us to look good for you, right? You want us to have perfume on, you want us to do this. Then let me tell you something. Get your freaking ass to cool sculpting or the gym, not Pilates, because then you'll meet another girl.
No,
And
that's
you do the shit we have to do because you're right. It's a different age now for women and for men. It really
it
is.
is.
I don't know where it's
Well, I
gonna
feel
go.
sorry for some of the men, these men, like I really do. And like I
Why?
am very pro
Oh,
woman, but it's like these poor men, and I mean, you know, that's what like my argument against feminism. I mean, there's a lot, but
yeah.
one of the biggest ones is like I would never. I have a son that I want to teach how to respect women, not be degraded and demasculated by them. They're still men at the end of the day, and they still are humans, and they have, they're more emotional than us. They're socially required to suppress that, right? So they already have enough, issues. And so this whole thing about attacking men all the time is not being pro woman at all. Like I think, and people are like shocked to hear that, but it's like, I have a son, I have a brother, I have a father. Like there are men in my life that I don't want to demasculate them. I want a man. I don't want a pussy little bitch, and I don't want my son to be a pussy little bitch. So like, I want to treat him with respect, and I expect respect back, and that's the same with anything. Like you can't just totally degrade a whole entire sex to make yourself feel elevated. Like if it's truly about equality, then let's be equal. Like why does one have to be better than the other? Like, and I'm very pro woman, very, very pro woman, but I'm also like, there are men that deserve to be um, not completely obliterated by women at the same time. So
Yeah.
there is that.
Like I basically say that women or girls, because that's how they act, are
Mm-hmm.
basically emotionally castrating men. And guys are for like your son, by the way, just for the record, her son is the most adorable thing in the world, but he's
He
he's a
loves you.
little flirt. He pinched me and it
He
was funny.
is.
I think he spanked my it was cute. But he's very well
He
behaved
would.
and you're so fortunate.
Oh,
And a lot of these
thank
poor
you. I
boys,
am.
these girls go out there demasculinize them, making their wear man belts. Put your hair in a bun. Like we want men to be men, not this fourth wave of feminism where it's just so backwards.
It
Camilla
is.
Paglia said this. This is fourth wave feminism. And when you need help moving your shit, who do you call? Toxic masculinity? They are toxic femininity, just like Amber Heard. And Johnny Depp is
Yeah,
hot.
I agree.
And his
He
wife
is
is so
hot.
gorgeous. Like she was so mean to his kids. That's what I heard because my friend lives
Yeah.
right by them. And it's so sad when people do that, and we're all in this world. It's the same shitty sandbox we all have to play in. And you make the best of it. You did. I mean, you've been through a lot. And then here you are, like an empire, madam, for alt erotica. You've
Oh,
made a
thank
name for
you.
yourself. I don't know what else you're doing with yourself, but what's next for Misha Montana, except for maybe her hitting
Uh,
me with a
yeah,
cane?
we'll see
You
what
crack
happens.
me up. You're like, I have a breakaway bottle. I'm like, no, we use real bottles here. I'm not going to hit you with a bottle. I'm never going to do that. But I'm going to make the ring crew get a freaking hand. Could some fan please bring to the next XPW show in Pomona a handheld vacuum for the ring crew? That's all I want.
Oh yeah. Yeah, seriously. That's good. I support
So,
that too.
what is next for you aside from your feature
Um,
dancing?
I'm constantly doing new things. Like every day there's something new. I'm aggressively attacking a lot of adult projects that I wanted to do last year that didn't get done. So working on that. But I have a lot of mainstream stuff going on. I'm actually involved in a mainstream project that I can't talk about because NDAs are involved, but that'll be exciting news soon. I've got a documentary crew with me next week from Norway, which is really cool. Just like it's constantly elevating and changing. I'm, you know, speaking more publicly and getting those kind of opportunities. So it's a whirlwind all the time. Like it's constantly busy, but it's wonderful. And I think it's branching out in so many different ways, like, adult and wrestling and then mainstream stuff and then advocating and politically being involved and all these different things. Like, I mean, one of those things would be it is a full-time job, let alone doing all 15 of them all the time. But it's like, I love it. Like, I love the pace. I don't intend on slowing down anytime soon. So, and then I'll be seeing you in Pomona, my dear, in a
Yes.
few weeks.
No, it's true. You can't slow down. And Norway is a great place. I lived in Norway for like 8 years. So I probably know who your documentary filmmaker friends are.
Oh,
I
cool.
did a lot of things there.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a fun
great.
thing doing documentaries. I think that's awesome. I had someone offer me something for a mini series. I said no because no actress out there could ever play me. And people think I'm stupid for like saying no, but I don't think I was stupid. I mean, what am I gonna do? Fuck up my life story because like someone thinks they're cool enough to be me? No, that doesn't happen. Example, the
I don't want to
Angeline
be portrayed.
documentary. No, we can't be portrayed because no method acting can ever teach you anything. And that's coming from someone who took every method acting class out there.
I was going to say, who is a method actor?
There's a lot of it out there, but we never covered anything like that. So you do the feature dancing. I used to have like candle wax on the stage. I let guys pour candle wax on me. I used to
Oh,
use
so tight.
fire. It
They
was a lot
wouldn't let
of
me
shit.
do it last time. Like I was trying to do like the shows and the cool, like the little poppers out of your pussy and everything. And like, they wouldn't let me, it was strictly like, you dance.
They're not looking at the way you're dancing, baby. Trust me.
No,
Uh,
they don't give a shit
no, they
about the
don't.
dancing. Which is apparent because
Yeah,
if you see me, I can't do it. So,
obviously. So, what do we have? Like, where could people find you socially and your social media? And of course, I'm going to plug it.
thank you, Mardia. All my socials are at the Misha Montana, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and MishaMontana.com, OnlyFans.com/Misha Montana. All kinds of crazy stuff. We're on YouTube at Two Russians, One America. I have my own personal channel on there as well that's growing a little bit. So I'm gonna start putting stuff up on that. So lots of crazy things coming for sure.
And what about what is it? Oh, your OnlyFans.
OnlyFans is Misha Montana. OnlyFans.com/Misha Montana.
And do
That's
you
the
have
one.
any intentions of ever getting back into politics again?
Yes, I do actually. At some point, we'll see, see what happens. I might even consider a run one day in the future. I don't know if that's a realistic possibility of securing a win, but I definitely would run for sure. So, I still work in politics kind of behind the scenes, like as a hobby more than anything. But I would like to be more involved. I just don't have the time that needs to be dedicated to that venture. But no, I love politics, and it was a hard choice to leave politics because I really did love it. It's just a frustrating beast, in every sense of the word. So I would love to be back in politics one day. Maybe
Yeah,
we'll
I
run
was
for
gonna
president.
say that, or at least let me handle your campaign. I've handled
Campaign,
campaigns,
yes.
and let me tell you, I'm more corrupt than any politician out there. You'll get in.
I love
You
you.
will, yeah. And this is
I
it's
love
a
you.
really big thing these days. I work on two political shows as well. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's a tough thing being able to have your mind heard. And it's sad that that's what it's come down to. The people, no matter what side you're on, your silence. But everyone just like what Misha said before, is everyone needs to listen to one another and get
Mm-hmm.
your facts, get your information, and don't bash people for what they do, what they think, or any so forth, and anything like that, because we all have to play in this filthy little sandbox called the world together.
We
And you
do.
never know who you're going to deal with down the line, kiddlings out
That's right.
there.
That's right. That's right.
So, see you guys in Pomona, those of you listening. And don't forget, someone just bring a freaking handheld vac. And
Do it.
yeah, thanks for hopping on the crazy train with us. And look out for
Always.
Misha Montana all over the world wide web. Woo!
Yay! See
Yay!
you in Pomona.
I hope you're enjoying the ride on Crazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. So if you are, do me a huge, huge favor. Woo! Please go ahead. Go on to Apple Podcast or Spotify or whatever, but Apple's great. Give me a nice rating and review. Send me a screenshot, and I promise you, I will send you a special goodie bag. So please rate and review Crazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. And in exchange for that, once I see the DM with the review and your name and address, I will get those gift bags out to you. I'm not going to tell you what's in it.